So we're gonna do some hunting, we're gonna do some trapping, and we're just gonna live in the woods on minimal equipment, just like how the trappers and frontiersmen of the 1800s did. First things first, we gotta go ahead and get our shelter set up. I need something to weigh that. I'm gonna get a big log here and put it at the back to weigh this side down. Plan for tonight is just grab my wool blanket, get a good fire going, and then just tuck in like this. Have my fire burning right where the camera is probably. The challenge isn't finding a log that's long enough or anything. The challenge is finding one that's gonna be clean enough that I don't mind sleeping next to it and isn't infested with ants or other bugs that are gonna come crawling out in the middle of the night to get some of my warmth. Perfect. That's much better. Now, as cool as this A-frame that I built is, it's not exactly period accurate. Although in the beginning of many of their trips, they did have oilcloth that they would sleep under. As their trapping season would progress, their cloths would get gradually more and more torn up, and they would opt to abandon them. In such cases, they usually would just sleep out on the dirt with no shelter at all. Now, there's actually a few cases of mountain men getting rabies because sleeping out under the stars with no shelter, a few animals like coyotes, wolves, and foxes would come by to nibble on them while they're sleeping. Now, the classic image of a mountain man dressed head to toe in buckskin leather isn't entirely accurate either. A lot of them would wear a cotton undershirt as well as a wool flannel and a wool vest. As for pants, a few would wear buckskin pants, but a lot of times when they first made their trips into the mountains, they would be wearing canvas pants very similar to the ones that I'm wearing right now. A lot of times at the yearly rendezvous, these guys would go out and purchase new clothing for their new year in the mountains. It's gonna get down below freezing tonight, so I'm gonna need quite a bit of firewood. Now, just yesterday, we got about 2.5 inches of rain, but a good place to look for dry firewood is tucked up under big evergreen trees like this cedar right here. Now, the trappers and frontiersmen of the early 1800s had one thing on their mind when they were exploring, and that was beaver. You see, beaver at the time was popular for making felt hats, and if you wanted to be fashionable in the 1800s, you needed a beaver fur hat. Now, one could make pretty good money trapping up and down rivers looking for beaver hides. In fact, you could make such good money that they almost trapped beavers to extinction. Now, today, beaver populations have bounced back quite well. In this area, we don't have many beavers, so instead, I'm opting for the next most valuable thing, at least to me, which is raccoons. Now, managing nest predators like raccoons helps game birds like turkeys and pheasants, which are both things that I'm trying to get more of on this property. They had to keep in mind that these trappers knew what they were doing when they were trapping all these beavers. They were not conservationists. Trapping beavers was just like a gold rush at the time. There seemed to be infinite amounts of it, and if you were brave enough to get out there and strike your claim on some land, then you could make a good living. Although a lot of these guys were sold on the idea of making their fortune trapping beavers, very few ever did. And that's because most of them either lost their money to drinking, gambling, or prostitutes, which doesn't sound too much different from how a lot of guys lose their money nowadays. Although these guys might not have been upstanding citizens, they were definitely skilled outdoorsmen. In fact, most of the original trails and passes that were mapped out by the mountain men, the military later used to establish their forts in Western America. Getting somewhere. So the mountain men did not have vacuum sealing, but they did eat whitetails like I do. And that is how they did it. The preferred food of the mountain men was actually bison. At the time, there was roughly 30 to 45 million bison that were roaming North America. In addition to that, you had animals like elk, deer, bear, and then all sorts of small game. They were not fancy with how they cooked. It was just a hunk of bison meat trusted to a stick, much like I've done here, and then roasted over a fire, usually very rare. And they could eat 5 pounds of that stuff a day. Shit. Ugh. It's getting there. That's about right. And it's not bad. You know, I see why somebody would become violent living this lifestyle. If I live this way, I'd probably be pretty violent too. I think that's just how it makes you. I think that having nice things in your life makes you a nice person, but when you're having to fight for every single day of your life, I think it probably makes you a little more aggressive. I got my food, made my fire, I got everything nice and settled in. I got my trap set. It was a pretty good day. I'm gonna go ahead, call it for the night, curl up in bed, get snuggled up, and stoke the fire a little bit, and I'll probably check on it once or twice throughout the night and just keep it going. But I think that's gonna do it for now. I will see you guys in the morning. So last night I went ahead and pulled this up over the A-frame, and that fire actually went right through this thin cloth and actually kept me pretty warm most of the night. These hides are really nice because there's a lot of hair on them, so they trap heat really well. I mean, it's not sleeping in a 0-degree bag with a hot tent, but it wasn't, you know, I wasn't gonna die.